Hi, I'm Arian, and this is my TBR for June of 2025, what I plan to read in June. So first let's start with the books I'm already reading. So the first book I'm already reading, which I have a little less than 100 pages left, I think, is Orleans by Sherry L. Smith. This book, which I'm really enjoying, by the way, it's a sci-fi book, happens in 2056, and a combination of natural disasters and plague make it so that the government basically secedes from the Delta states, Louisiana, Texas, Florida, Georgia, and I think there's one more. I don't know. I'm not actually American despite my accent. And so we follow our main character, Fenn, who is trying to get a baby over the wall. And at the same time, we follow our character, Daniel, who comes from the outer states into the wall to try to find a cure for this plague. Okay, next book I started today, and that is the third edition of the Northern Introduction to Poetry, which I'm enjoying. I was really craving some poetry, so I'm glad this came up, and I really am. Some of the poems I'm not enjoying, but for the most part, I actually am enjoying most of the poems in here, which in any anthology, that's weird. I feel like to enjoy most of the stuff. I think for most part in anthologies, you can hope the best you can hope for is to enjoy 75% of the stuff, and usually what happens is you enjoy 40% of the stuff, and I think I'm definitely enjoying more to the side of 75% of the stuff so far. I am not very far into it. This is 500-ish pages, at page 75, so yeah. Okay, now let's get to the books. I haven't started yet. So every month I have 2 series that I read one book from a month. And for both of the series I'm currently reading, I am very nearly at the end. So the first series I'm reading is Shopaholic by Sophie Kinsella. I am at the penultimate book, which is Shopaholic to the Stars. So we follow our main character, Becky, she is basically this woman who really loves shopping. And it's just a silly, fun, realistic fiction series. And so in this one, she's moving with her husband to LA. I'm guessing that she's going to become a personal shopper. I don't really read the summaries of the next book in series. I tend not to read the summaries. I just tend to go straight into them. And then the next series, I'm reading Magic Treehouse Merlin Mission. And I'm actually at the last book. So the last book is called Night of the Ninth Dragon. So we're ending on a high note, right? And our main characters, Jack and Annie, go to Camelot, and they have one day to find a dragon in order to save all of Camelot. This is very much a beginning reader series. It's probably 100 to 120 pages long. And so I hope I really enjoy this one. Okay, next. There is also the Buzzwordathon, which is by Books and Law. And you get 2 prompts a month. One for the cover, something on the cover, and one for a word in the title. So the prompt for the word in the title was memory. And I decided to read, it's a really hard word. It doesn't have to only be memory, you could do anything to do with memory, but it's still a really hard word. So I decided to read In the Night of Memory. I don't know why I keep remember The Night of Living Memory, probably because of The Night of Living Dead, but In the Night of Memory by Linda Lagarde Grover. I'm not sure if this happens in the US or Canada. I'll have to find out. But this follows 2 girls who are First Nations, and their mother gives them up to the state and then disappears. Basically, it follows their life. Next prompt, the cover prompt, is Celestial. So I am planning to read Star Daughter by Shweta Thakrar. This is about a teenage girl who, I think at the beginning she lives in the art world, and then she gets called to this competition in the stars because she's the daughter of a star, and the stars want to find out who will be the next ruler of the celestial world, and she really doesn't want to be part of the competition. She only agrees to be part of the competition because that's how she'll save her father. Now, this book does not sound that interesting to me. However, I read a story by Shweta Thakrar in an anthology, and I really liked it. So I really wanted to find a book by her to read, so I do hope I like this book. I might not, which is also okay, because it doesn't really seem my kind of book, which is fine. Okay, next, there is a readathon called Aurelium, and this readathon happens mainly in April and September, But there's a year-long adventure. So you read one book per character. You're really only supposed to have one character. I have two for this. I have two others for the main readathon, but whatever. And every month there's a different prompt, and you follow this kind of adventure. So my two characters are currently going through a maze, but they each have different prompts. And so for one of my characters, Rafaela, has to break traps, and for that I have to read a mystery book. So I decided to read The Barrister and the Letter of Mark by Todd M. Johnson. So this is a historical mystery, and it follows our barrister who meets this woman who has funded a merchant ship, and this merchant ship had a special letter, the Letter of Mark, that basically lets them be a privateer. And somehow that letter disappears, and the captain of the ship is captured, and everything is taken to jail, and everything on a ship is seized. So the woman who funded the ship hires the barrister to find out who made the letter vanish. I like historical fiction, and I really, really want to find adult historical fiction that I like. That's basically what I like. That's basically what I want. And I feel like also every time I do find adult historical fiction that I like, the author has put out very few books. It's not like the kid historical fiction I like, American Girl, how many books are there? Avi put out so many books, or even not in English, Oro Morag, so many books. Adults that put out good historical fiction, or maybe even not good historical fiction. I don't go looking for the ones that aren't good, that I didn't enjoy, maybe I shouldn't say aren't good, that I didn't enjoy. Don't put out a lot of books. And then for my other character, her prompt is just to find the exit out of the maze, and that's to read a book over 500 pages. I'm not really a person who likes to read huge books. Even that, it's not over 500 pages. That poetry anthology, it's actually, well, technically it is, but I'm not reading the end, which is a textbook part. Without the textbook part, it's not over 500 pages. But the book I did decide to read for this, and I actually got this as an audiobook, is Demon Copperhead by Barbara Kingsolver. First of all, as an aside, let's just talk about Barbara Kingsolver's last name. Kingsolver. How great is that? I want that last name. Anyways, this book, from what I know, is a modern-day retelling of David Copperfield by Charles Dickens, which takes place in one of the very, very poor regions of the U.S. And we basically follow this kid just growing up his whole life in this very poor region. So I haven't read David Copperfield. I don't really plan to, because I find the way that Charles Dickens writes honestly kind of boring. I've read Oliver Twist, I read Great Expectations, I DNF'd the Pickwick Papers, and I DNF'd Hard Times. I just don't really like the way he writes, so I'm not planning to read David Copperfield. But I do know that it's the book that is most autobiographical, and that basically, and I'm assuming that both of these books follow a kid growing up very poor and trying to get to their fortune. And I do know another thing about Charles Dickens is that he was writing at a time when rags to riches stories were very popular, and that he didn't follow the general way that rags to riches stories worked. Which is interesting, because I actually do really like rags to riches stories. The Little Princess, Ragged Dick. I really like this story. So I do like the classic way that rags to riches stories work. Even, I do have, social critique about it, and I always have had, but I do in general like how they work. So, but again, I said that the reason I don't like Charles Dickens that much is because of his writing style. I did enjoy the story of Great Expectations, I just didn't really like the writing style. So I'm hoping that Demon Copperfield I will enjoy more, and also I really hope the audiobook is good, because if it isn't good, I don't know what I'll do. I don't know what I'll read. Okay? And I just really want to hear an accent. I really like when you listen to an audiobook and you get the accent of the character. I assume, for some reason, I'm not sure why I assume this, but I assume that the book is going to be in first person. So anyways, those are all the books I plan to read in June. Thank you for watching.